New York City, Manhattan, Upper East Side. The rain hammered against the tall windows of Billionaire, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants, where a single reservation could cost more than Sophia Chen's monthly rent. The golden chandeliers cast warm light over white tablecloths and crystal glasses, creating an atmosphere of refined elegance that felt almost intimidating to someone wearing a borrowed uniform that was slightly too tight around the shoulders. Sophia adjusted her name tag for the third time in 5 minutes, her fingers trembling slightly. First hour actually. She'd been hired that morning after the previous hostess had quit without notice, and the manager, a stern woman named Patricia, had barely given her 10 minutes of training before pushing her toward the entrance podium. Smile, greet, seat. Don't overthink it, Patricia had said, her heels clicking away before Sophia could ask about the reservation system. Now, at 8:47 p.m. on a cold November evening, Sophia stood behind the mahogany podium watching well-dressed couples and business executives flow through the brass-framed doors. Each face looked confident, comfortable, like they belonged in places like this. Sophia certainly didn't feel that way. She'd spent the last 3 months unemployed after the bookstore where she worked had closed down, and her landlord had made it crystal clear. Rent was due in 4 days or she was out. This job was everything. She couldn't mess it up. "Good evening," she said to an older gentleman in a navy suit, her voice steadier than she felt. "Do you have a reservation?" "Morrison, table for 2. Sophia scanned the list, found his name, and gestured toward a waiter. Small victory. She exhaled slowly. The evening continued in a blur of names, tables, and forced smiles. Her feet ached in the black flats she'd bought at a thrift store that afternoon. But she kept going, kept smiling, kept pretending she knew exactly what she was doing. At 9:15 p.m., a shift in the restaurant's energy made her look up. A man had just entered, tall, probably in his late 30s, with dark hair touched with gray at the temples. His charcoal suit looked like it cost more than her entire wardrobe, and he wore it with the kind of ease that came from a lifetime of wealth. His eyes were sharp, calculating, the kind that seemed to measure everything and everyone in seconds. Behind him stood 2 other men, clearly security, their expressions neutral but alert. Patricia appeared instantly, her usual stern demeanor replaced by something close to deference. "Mr. Harrington," she said warmly, "your table is ready." The man, Harrington, nodded slightly and followed Patricia deeper into the restaurant without a word. Sophia watched them disappear toward the private dining section, a cordoned area where only the most important guests were seated. "That's Julian Harrington," whispered Marcus, one of the waiters, as he passed her podium. "Real estate mogul, owns half the buildings in Midtown, worth something like $3 billion. Sophia's eyes widened. $3 billion. She couldn't even imagine that kind of money. "He comes here often?" she asked. "Once a month, always alone or with business associates. Tips well, doesn't talk much, intimidating as hell." Marcus grinned. "Don't worry, you won't have to deal with him. Patricia handles the VIPs. Sophia nodded and turned her attention back to the entrance as another couple arrived. The next hour passed smoothly. Sophia was starting to feel the rhythm of the job. Greeting, checking lists, coordinating with waiters. Maybe she could actually do this. At 10:42 p.m., as the crowd began to thin, Sophia noticed something on the floor near the private dining section. A black leather wallet, partially hidden beneath the edge of a velvet curtain. She glanced around. No one seemed to notice it. Walking over, she picked it up carefully. It was expensive, genuine leather, heavy with elegant stitching. She opened it. Inside were several credit cards, all black, all embossed with the name Julian Harrington. There was also a thick stack of $100 bills. Sophia quickly counted. $2,000 in cash. Her heart pounded. $2,000. That would cover her rent. It would cover groceries for 2 months. It would give her breathing room while she got back on her feet. No one had seen her pick it up. The wallet had been on the floor, out of sight. She could slip it into her bag, say nothing, and no one would ever know. Her fingers tightened around the leather. But even as the thought crossed her mind, Sophia knew she couldn't do it. It wasn't hers. It didn't matter how desperate she was. Stealing wasn't who she was. Her grandmother had raised her better than that. She closed the wallet and looked toward the private section. Through the partially open curtain, she could see Julian Harrington rising from his table, shaking hands with 2 men in suits he was leaving. Sophia didn't hesitate. She walked quickly toward the entrance, her heart racing. Harrington and his security were already moving through the restaurant, heading for the doors. "Mr. Harrington," she called out, louder than she intended. Several heads turned. Patricia shot her a sharp look from across the room. Harrington stopped and turned slowly, his expression unreadable. His cold gray eyes locked onto hers. Sophia hurried forward, holding out the wallet. "You dropped this, sir," she said, slightly breathless. "I found it near your table." For a long moment, Harrington said nothing. He simply looked at her, then at the wallet, then back at her face. His expression gave nothing away. Finally, he reached out and took the wallet from her hands. "Thank you," he said, his voice low and measured. Then he turned and walked out into the rain without another word. Sophia stood there, watching the door close behind him, feeling strangely hollow. She'd done the right thing. She knew she had. But $2,000 would have changed everything. Will Sophia regret her decision? What she doesn't know is that her honesty just set something in motion, something that will change her life forever. The subway ride home felt longer than usual. Sophia sat wedged between a man in a stained jacket who smelled like cigarettes and a teenager blasting music through broken headphones. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as the train rattled through the dark tunnels beneath Manhattan, and all Sophia could think about was that wallet, $2,000. She kept replaying the moment in her mind, the weight of the leather in her hands, the stack of crisp bills, the split second when she'd considered keeping it. The rational part of her brain screamed that she'd made a mistake. She needed that money. Her landlord, Mr. Kowalski, had been clear: pay by Friday or pack your things. But the other part, the part that sounded like her grandmother's voice, reminded her that integrity wasn't something you could turn on and off, depending on your bank account. "You did the right thing," she whispered to herself, barely audible over the screech of the train's brakes. The woman next to her glanced over, and Sophia quickly looked away, embarrassed. By the time she climbed the stairs to street level in Queens, it was nearly midnight. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet, reflecting the neon signs of closed bodegas and 24-hour laundromats. Sophia pulled her thin jacket tighter against the November cold and walked the 4 blocks to her apartment building, a 6-story walk-up with cracked brick and a broken intercom system. She trudged up to the 3rd floor, her legs burning from standing all evening. The hallway smelled like fried onions and something vaguely chemical. She unlocked the 3 deadbolts on her door and stepped into her studio apartment. It was small, barely 300 square feet, with a kitchenette that consisted of a hot plate and a mini fridge, a bathroom the size of a closet, and a mattress on the floor that served as her bed. But it was hers, or at least it had been for the past 2 years. Sophia dropped her bag on the floor and collapsed onto the mattress, still wearing her uniform. She stared at the water-stained ceiling and tried not to think about what would happen in 4 days if she couldn't come up with the rent money. Maybe she could ask for an advance on her paycheck. Maybe Patricia would understand. Even as she thought it, Sophia knew it was unlikely. Patricia didn't seem like the understanding type. She closed her eyes and let exhaustion pull her under. The next morning, 9:17 a.m., Sophia woke to her phone buzzing aggressively on the floor beside her mattress. She grabbed it, squinting at the bright screen. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Probably a spam call, but something made her swipe to accept. "Hello?" Her voice was rough with sleep. "Is this Sophia Chen?" A woman's voice, professional and clipped. "Yes, who's calling?" "This is Elizabeth Crane, executive assistant to Julian Harrington, Mr. Harrington would like to meet with you this morning at his office. Are you available at 11? Sophia sat up abruptly, suddenly wide awake. "I what? Why?" "Mr. Harrington will explain when you arrive. I'm sending a car to pick you up at your address. The driver will be there at 10:30. Please be ready." "Wait, I don't understand." "The address is 432 Park Avenue, 57th floor. The driver will bring you directly to the building. Is there anything else you need?" Sophia's mind raced. "No, I'll be ready." "Excellent. See you at 11, Ms. Chen." The line went dead. Sophia stared at her phone, her heart pounding. Julian Harrington wanted to see her? The billionaire whose wallet she'd returned last night? Why? Had she done something wrong? Maybe there had been something else in the wallet, something important, and he thought she'd taken it. Her stomach twisted with anxiety. She glanced at the time, 9:19 a.m. She had just over an hour to shower, get dressed, and figure out what the hell was happening. 10:28 a.m. Sophia stood on the sidewalk in front of her building, wearing the only professional outfit she owned, black slacks and a white blouse she'd bought for job interviews 3 months ago. She'd tied her dark hair back in a neat ponytail and put on minimal makeup, trying to look composed even though her hands were shaking. At exactly 10:30, a sleek black town car pulled up to the curb. The driver, A man in his 50s wearing a crisp suit stepped out and opened the rear door. "Miss Chen?" Sophia nodded, too nervous to speak. She slid into the leather back seat, and the driver closed the door with a soft click. The interior smelled like expensive cologne and new car. Classical music played quietly through hidden speakers. Sophia sat rigidly, clutching her small purse in her lap as the car glided through Queens and across the bridge into Manhattan. She'd never been in a car like this. Never been treated like someone important. It felt surreal. The drive took 30 minutes, and Sophia spent most of it staring out the tinted windows, watching the city transform from her familiar working-class neighborhood to the towering glass and steel monuments of Midtown. When the car pulled up in front of 432 Park Avenue, Sophia's breath caught. The building was one of the tallest residential towers in the city, a slender, modern structure that seemed to pierce the sky. She'd seen it from a distance before, but never imagined she'd actually go inside. The driver opened her door and Sophia stepped onto the sidewalk, feeling impossibly small. "Take the elevator to the 57th floor," the driver said politely. "Ms. Crane will meet you there." Sophia nodded and walked toward the entrance on unsteady legs. The lobby was all marble and mirrors, with a security desk manned by 2 guards in suits. One of them checked her name on a list and gestured toward a private elevator. "Ms. Chen, you're expected. Go right up." The elevator doors opened and Sophia stepped inside. There were no buttons, just a panel that required a key card. The doors closed automatically and the elevator began to rise smoothly, so fast that Sophia's ears popped. The numbers on the digital display climbed. 20, 30, 40, 50. At 57, the doors opened. Sophia stepped out into a corridor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. The view was breathtaking. The entire city spread out below like a living map. "Ms. Chen." Sophia turned to see a woman in her 40s approaching, blonde, wearing a tailored gray suit, her expression polite but unreadable. This had to be Elizabeth Crane. "Follow me, please." Elizabeth led her down the corridor to a set of glass doors. Beyond them was an office that looked more like a penthouse suite. Modern furniture, abstract art on the walls, and windows on 3 sides offering panoramic views of Manhattan. And standing near one of those windows, looking out at the city, was Julian Harrington. He turned as they entered. "Ms. Chen," he said, his voice the same low, measured tone from last night. "Thank you for coming." Sophia swallowed hard. "Of course, I wasn't sure why you wanted to see me." Harrington gestured to a leather chair near his desk. "Please sit." Sophia sat, her back straight, her hands folded in her lap. Elizabeth remained standing near the door. Harrington studied her for a long moment, his gray eyes unreadable. "Do you know why you're here?" he asked finally. Sophia shook her head. "No, sir. Last night you returned my wallet. You could have kept it. $2,000 in cash. Several credit cards with no limit. Instead, you ran after me to return it." Sophia nodded slowly. "It wasn't mine. Most people wouldn't have done that." Harrington's gaze was intense, almost piercing. "Especially someone in your situation." Sophia's stomach dropped. "My situation? I had you checked out after last night. I know you're 3 months behind on rent. I know you lost your job. I know you're struggling." Heat flooded Sophia's face, a mix of embarrassment and anger. "You investigated me?" "I did." Harrington's expression didn't change. "And what I found interested me." "Why?" Sophia's voice came out sharper than she intended. "What do you want from me?" Harrington walked to his desk and picked up a folder. He opened it, glanced at the contents, then looked back at her. "That wallet last night. It wasn't an accident. I left it there deliberately. It's something I do occasionally. A test." Sophia felt her blood run cold. "A test?" "I wanted to see what kind of person you are. Whether you'd do the right thing even when no one was watching. Even when you desperately needed the money." He closed the folder. "You passed." Sophia's mind reeled. This was all planned? But why? What does a billionaire want with her? And what kind of offer is he about to make that will change everything? Sophia sat frozen in the leather chair, her mind struggling to process what Julian Harrington had just told her. A test. The wallet had been a test. He'd deliberately left it there, watching to see what she would do with it, like she was some kind of lab experiment. The anger came first, hot and immediate. Hot and... who did he think he was? Playing games with people's lives, testing their character like they were auditioning for some role in his carefully controlled world. But beneath the anger was something else, confusion, and a growing sense of unease. "You had no right to do that," Sophia said, her voice trembling but firm. To manipulate me like that, to invade my privacy by investigating my life. Harrington's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Perhaps respect, perhaps just acknowledgement. You're right, I didn't, but I did it anyway, and I'm not apologizing for it. Why? Sophia demanded. What could you possibly gain from testing some random hostess you've never met? Because character is the rarest commodity in my world, Harrington said, moving to sit in the chair across from her rather than behind his desk. The gesture felt deliberate, like he was trying to put them on equal footing, though Sophia knew they would never truly be equals. I'm surrounded by people who tell me what I want to hear, people who smile to my face and calculate how to benefit from knowing me. Last night I wanted to see something real, something honest. And you found it by tricking me? I found it by giving you a choice. No one forced you to return that wallet, Ms. Chen. You could have walked away. You didn't. Sophia looked away, out the massive windows at the city below. From this height, the people on the streets looked like ants, insignificant and small. That's how she felt right now, small and manipulated. So what now? She asked quietly. You've had your test. You know I'm honest. What do you want from me? Harrington leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. I want to offer you a job. Sophia's head snapped back toward him. What? Not as a hostess, something more significant. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I need a personal assistant, someone who can handle sensitive information, manage complex schedules, coordinate with high-level executives and clients. Someone I can trust. Sophia let out a sharp laugh that sounded almost hysterical. You don't even know me. I know you're honest. I know you work hard. I checked your employment history at the bookstore. Your former manager said you were reliable, punctual, and learned quickly. I know you're educated. You have a bachelor's degree in English literature from Queen's College. And I know you need this opportunity. The last part stung because it was true. Sophia did need this. Desperately. Why me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. There are thousands of qualified people in New York. People with experience as executive assistants. People who know your world. Exactly, Harrington said. They know my world. They know how to navigate it, how to play the games, how to position themselves for advantage. You don't. That makes you valuable to me. I don't understand. Harrington stood and walked back to the windows, his hands clasped behind his back. 3 months ago, I discovered that my previous assistant, someone who'd worked for me for 5 years, was selling information about my business dealings to a competitor. Confidential information about acquisitions, investments, strategic plans. She made over $200,000 before I caught her. Sophia's eyes widened. That's corporate espionage. Yes. Harrington's voice was cold. She's currently facing criminal charges, but the damage was done. I lost a deal worth $50 million because my competitor knew exactly what I was planning. I'm sorry that happened to you, Sophia said carefully, but I still don't see why that means you should hire someone with zero experience. Harrington turned to face her. Because experience in my world often means corruption. It means knowing how to exploit systems, how to leverage access for personal gain. You don't have that. You have something I've found much harder to find. Genuine integrity. Sophia sat silently, trying to absorb what he was saying. Part of her wanted to refuse on principle. She didn't like being manipulated, didn't like that he'd tested her like some specimen under a microscope. But another part, the practical part that knew her eviction notice was 4 days away, was already calculating what this could mean. What would the job entail? She asked finally. Elizabeth Crane, who had remained silent near the door, stepped forward and handed Sophia a document. The job description and contract terms are outlined here. You'd be Mr. Harrington's primary assistant, handling all scheduling, correspondence, travel arrangements, and client relations. You'd accompany him to meetings, take notes, coordinate with his legal and financial teams. Sophia scanned the document, her eyes catching on the salary line. Her breath stopped. $150,000 per year, plus benefits, plus performance bonuses. That was more than triple what she'd made at the bookstore. More than she'd ever imagined earning. This can't be real, she whispered. It's real, Harrington said, but understand what you'd be signing up for. The hours are long. The work is demanding. You'd essentially be on call 24 hours a day. You'd have access to highly confidential information, and I would expect absolute discretion. Any breach of that confidence would result in immediate termination and potential legal action. You'd own my life, Sophia said. I'd compensate you extremely well for it. Sophia looked down at the contract again, her mind racing. This was insane. She'd been a hostess for exactly one night, and now a billionaire was offering her a six-figure job based on a test she hadn't known she was taking. Every instinct told her this was too good to be true, that there had to be a catch. But then she thought about Mr. Kowalski and the eviction notice. She thought about the empty fridge in her apartment, the dwindling balance in her checking account, the crushing weight of uncertainty that had defined the last 3 months of her life. This was a way out, maybe the only way out she was going to get. "I need time to think about it," Sophia said, though even as she spoke she knew what her answer would be. Harrington nodded. "You have until 5 p.m. today. Elizabeth will give you her direct number. Call when you've made your decision." He extended his hand. Sophia stood and shook it, feeling the firm, confident grip of someone who was used to getting what he wanted. "One more thing, Ms. Chen," Harrington said as she turned to leave. "If you accept this position, I need you to understand something. I don't tolerate betrayal. I don't tolerate dishonesty. The moment I suspect you're not acting in my best interests, you're done. No second chances, no explanations. Do we understand each other?" Sophia met his cold gray eyes and saw no warmth there, no flexibility, just absolute certainty. "I understand," she said quietly. 2:47 p.m., Queens. Sophia sat on her mattress, the contract spread out in front of her, reading it for the 4th time. Elizabeth Crane had given her a printed copy along with a business card that simply read, "Elizabeth Crane, executive assistant to Julian Harrington," followed by a phone number. The apartment felt smaller than usual, the walls pressing in. The water stain on the ceiling seemed to have grown overnight, spreading like a bruise. She'd been staring at the same paragraph for 10 minutes without really reading it. Her mind kept circling back to Harrington's words. "Character is the rarest commodity in my world." Was that really all this was? A billionaire looking for someone he could trust? Or was there something else? Some other reason he'd chosen her specifically? Sophia's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, the waiter from Luminaire. "Hey, Patricia is asking where you are. You working tonight?" Sophia had completely forgotten about her shift. She typed back quickly. Something came up. "Tell Patricia I'm sorry I can't make it." She hesitated, then added, "I might not be coming back." She hit send before she could second-guess herself, because the truth was, she'd already made her decision. She'd known the moment she saw that salary, the moment she calculated what it would mean for her life, she would take the job. Not because she trusted Julian Harrington, she didn't. Not because she felt comfortable with how he'd tested her, she didn't. But because opportunities like this didn't come to people like her. Because saying no meant going back to her studio apartment and her unpaid rent and her uncertain future. At least this way she'd have a chance. Sophia picked up her phone and dialed Elizabeth Crane's number. The assistant answered on the first ring. "Ms. Chen, have you made your decision?" "Yes," Sophia said, her voice steady, despite the nervous energy thrumming through her body. "I accept the position." "Excellent. Can you start Monday morning?" 8 a.m.? "Yes." "Perfect. I'll email you the onboarding information tonight. Welcome to the team, Ms. Chen." The line went dead. Sophia sat in the silence of her apartment, the contract still spread out before her, and wondered what exactly she'd just agreed to. Sophia has accepted the offer, but as she's about to discover, working for Julian Harrington comes with secrets, dangers, and complications she never could have imagined. What is he really hiding? And why did he choose her? Monday morning, 7:43 m. Sophia stood outside 432 Park Avenue, staring up at the building that would now define her daily life. She'd barely slept over the weekend, her mind oscillating between excitement and dread. She'd paid her rent. Mr. Kowalski had looked genuinely shocked when she handed him the check, and bought 2 new professional outfits from a department store in Manhattan. The navy suit she wore now still had the tags tucked inside the jacket pocket. She'd removed them nervously on the subway ride. The morning was cold and gray, typical November weather, with wind tunneling between the skyscrapers and making her eyes water. Sophia took a deep breath, adjusted the leather portfolio Elizabeth had couriered to her apartment on Saturday, and walked through the revolving doors. The security guard recognized her this time. "Ms. Chen, good morning. You're all set up in the system now. Your access card is waiting upstairs with Ms. Crane." Sophia nodded and headed to the elevator, her heart pounding harder with each floor that passed. When the doors opened on 57, Elizabeth Crane was waiting, looking as polished and unreadable as before in a black pantsuit. "Right on time," Elizabeth said approvingly. "Follow me." The corridor looked different in daylight, less intimidating, more businesslike. Elizabeth led her past Harrington's main office to a smaller room adjacent to it, separated by a glass wall and door. "This is your workspace," Elizabeth explained, gesturing to a sleek desk with dual monitors, a leather chair, and a view that looked east toward the Chrysler Building. "Your computer is already set up with access to Mr. Harrington's calendar, email system, and secure file database. Everything is password protected. The IT department will brief you on security protocols at 9. Sophia set down her portfolio, taking in the space. It was larger than her entire apartment. "Your primary responsibilities," Elizabeth continued, pulling out a tablet and scrolling through notes, "are managing Mr. Harrington's schedule, screening all communications, preparing briefing documents for meetings, and coordinating with department heads across his various companies. You'll also handle personal matters, restaurant reservations, travel arrangements, occasionally dealing with his property managers." "How many companies does he own?" Sophia asked. "Directly? 12. He has stakes in 47 others." Elizabeth's tone suggested this should be obvious. "You'll learn the structure quickly. For now, focus on today's schedule." She tapped the tablet, and Sophia's computer screen lit up with a detailed calendar. "Mr. Harrington has a 9:30 meeting with the architects redesigning his Boston property. At 11, a conference call with his legal team about the Henderson acquisition. Lunch at 1 with Senator Patricia Morales. That's at the Modern, reservation under his name. At 3, he's meeting with Dr. Rebecca Stein from Mount Sinai. That one's personal, keep it discreet. Then at 5, he has a site visit to the Brooklyn Development Project." Sophia's head was spinning. "And what do I need to do for each of these?" "For the 9:30, print the architectural plans. They're in the shared folder labeled Boston Renovation. Have coffee ready in the conference room and make sure the presentation screen is working. For the 11 o'clock, dial into the conference line 5 minutes early and ensure the connection is secure. For lunch, confirm the reservation this morning. The 3 o'clock is already handled. Just make sure no one disturbs them. For the 5 o'clock, arrange the car and confirm the site manager will be there." Elizabeth paused, studying Sophia's expression. "Overwhelming? Honestly? Yes. Good. If you weren't overwhelmed, I'd be worried." Elizabeth's mouth twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. "But you'll adapt, Mr. Harrington doesn't hire people who can't keep up." "How long have you worked for him?" Sophia asked. 8 years. Elizabeth's voice softened slightly. "I was his assistant before the promotion to executive assistant. I know this job inside and out, so if you have questions, ask. Mr. Harrington values efficiency, discretion, and initiative. He doesn't like excuses, and he doesn't tolerate mistakes that stem from laziness or carelessness. But if you're honest and you work hard, he's fair." Before Sophia could respond, the main office door opened, and Julian Harrington walked in, carrying a briefcase and wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Sophia's entire wardrobe. He glanced at her briefly, nodded to Elizabeth, and headed to his desk without a word. Elizabeth leaned closer to Sophia. "When he's in work mode, don't interrupt unless it's urgent. Learn to read his moods. And whatever you do, make sure his coffee is always fresh. He's particular about it." With that, Elizabeth left, her heels clicking down the corridor. Sophia stood alone in her new office, staring at the calendar on her screen, feeling like she'd just been thrown into the deep end of a pool she didn't know how to swim in. 9:52 a.m. The meeting with the architects had gone smoothly, mostly because Sophia had stayed quiet and focused on taking notes. Harrington spoke in precise, clipped sentences, asking pointed questions about load-bearing walls and zoning restrictions. The architects treated him with a deference that bordered on fear. After they left, Harrington stopped by Sophia's desk. The coffee was cold. Sophia's stomach dropped. I'm sorry. I made it at 9:15. I thought, make it at 9:25 next time. And use the French press, not the drip machine. Temperature matters." He walked away before she could respond. Sophia exhaled slowly, making a note in her phone. Coffee, 9:25, French press. This was going to be harder than she thought. 1:17 p.m. Sophia sat in the back of the town car as the driver navigated midtown traffic toward the Modern. Harrington sat beside her, reviewing documents on his tablet, his expression unreadable. He hadn't spoken to her since the coffee incident. "When we arrive," he said suddenly, not looking up, "you'll wait in the car. Senator Morales doesn't like assistants hovering." "Understood. If anyone calls while I'm inside, take a message. Don't interrupt unless it's Richard Coleman or my brother." Sophia pulled out her phone to make another note. "Your brother, what's his name?" David Harrington. Harrington's voice tightened slightly. If he calls, I want to know immediately. Okay? Sophia hesitated. Is there anything else I should know about people you consider urgent? For the first time that day, Harrington looked directly at her. You'll learn. Pay attention to patterns. Notice who I prioritize. That's more valuable than any list I could give you. The car pulled up in front of the Modern, the restaurant adjacent to the Museum of Modern Art. Harrington stepped out without another word, and Sophia watched him disappear through the glass doors. She sat in the car for the next 90 minutes, responding to emails on her phone and trying not to feel completely out of her depth. At 2:34, her phone rang. Unknown number. Julian Harrington's office. This is Sophia Chen. Finally, someone answers. The voice was male, smooth, with an edge of irritation. This is David Harrington. I need to speak with my brother immediately. Sophia's pulse quickened. Mr. Harrington is currently in a meeting, but he asked me to interrupt him if you called. Can you hold for just a moment? Make it fast. Sophia stepped out of the car and walked quickly toward the restaurant entrance. The maitre d' recognized Harrington's name and pointed toward a corner table where he sat with an elegant woman in her 50s. Senator Morales, presumably. Sophia approached carefully, waiting for a pause in their conversation. Harrington glanced up, his expression annoyed. I'm sorry to interrupt, Sophia said quietly. Your brother is on the line. He said it's urgent. Something shifted in Harrington's face, a flicker of emotion too quick to identify. He nodded, stood, and excused himself from the table. Sophia handed him her phone in the restaurant's foyer. David. Harrington's voice was cold. What do you want? Sophia stepped back to give him privacy, but she could still hear fragments of the conversation. I told you I'm not doing this again. You made your choice. No, that's final. Stop calling me. Harrington ended the call and handed the phone back to Sophia without meeting her eyes. His jaw was tight, a muscle twitching beneath the skin. Thank you, he said stiffly, then returned to his table. Sophia walked back to the car, her mind racing. Whatever had just happened, it was clearly personal and painful. She made a mental note. David Harrington. Complicated relationship. Handle carefully. 5:47 p.m. Brooklyn development site. The construction site in Brooklyn was a sprawling lot in Red Hook, surrounded by chain-link fencing and filled with the skeletal frames of what would eventually become luxury condos. Harrington walked through the site with the project manager, a burly man named Tony Ricci, discussing timelines and budget concerns. Sophia followed a few steps behind, taking notes on her tablet and trying to avoid stepping in the mud that seemed to cover everything. The foundation work is behind schedule, Ricci was saying, his voice apologetic. We had some unexpected issues with the soil quality. Nothing catastrophic, but it's added 3 weeks to the timeline. 3 weeks translates to how much money? Harrington asked. Roughly $200,000 in additional labor costs. Harrington stopped walking and turned to face Ricci. $200,000 because of soil quality issues you should have identified in the initial survey. Mr. Harrington, the survey was thorough, but sometimes, I don't pay for sometimes, Tony. I pay for certainty. Find a way to make up those 3 weeks or I'll find someone who can. Ricci's face reddened. Yes, sir. I'll have a revised plan on your desk by Wednesday. Tuesday, absolutely. As they walked back toward the car, Sophia could feel the tension radiating off Harrington. This was a different side of him. Harder, more demanding. She understood now why people feared him. Back in the car, Harrington finally spoke. What did you think of that meeting? Sophia looked up, surprised. You're asking my opinion? You were there, you observed. What did you see? Sophia chose her words carefully. I saw someone who's afraid of disappointing you. Someone who's probably competent but made a mistake and knows you don't forgive mistakes easily. Harrington's mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. Good. That's exactly right. Ricci is a solid project manager, but he got complacent. Sometimes people need to be reminded that competence isn't enough. Excellence is the baseline. That sounds exhausting, Sophia said before she could stop herself. Harrington raised an eyebrow. For whom? For everyone. For you. For the people who work for you. Perfection isn't sustainable. Maybe not. But mediocrity is unacceptable. He looked out the window at the passing Brooklyn streets. You'll understand eventually, Ms. Chen. When you're responsible for billions of dollars and thousands of jobs, perfection isn't optional. Sophia said nothing. She was beginning to understand Julian Harrington. Not completely, but enough to see the loneliness beneath the armor. The isolation of being someone everyone feared, and no one really knew. As Sophia's first day ends, She's beginning to see the man behind the power, but she has no idea that her presence in Harrington's life has already attracted attention from people who don't want her there. 2 weeks later, Tuesday, 6:47 a.m., Sophia had learned to arrive at the office before Harrington. It was an unspoken expectation. His coffee needed to be ready at precisely 7:15 a.m., the morning briefing printed and on his desk, and any overnight emails flagged by priority. She'd adapted to sleeping less, her body adjusting to the brutal schedule. The paycheck that had hit her account last Friday made it feel almost worth it. Almost. She was reviewing the day's calendar when Elizabeth appeared in her doorway, her usual composure slightly fractured. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. "Sophia, I need you to handle something sensitive today," Elizabeth said, closing the glass door behind her. "Mr. Harrington has a personal appointment at 2 p.m. It's with his therapist, Dr. Jonathan Webb. It's not on the digital calendar, only on the private one I maintain." Sophia looked up, surprised. "He sees a therapist? Once a month. Very few people know, and it needs to stay that way." Elizabeth's voice was firm. "The appointment is at Dr. Webb's private office in Tribeca. I usually arrange the car and ensure the schedule is completely clear for 3 hours before and after. No calls, no interruptions, nothing." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I won't be here today. Family emergency. My mother is having surgery in Boston, and I'm taking the morning train." Elizabeth pulled out her phone and forwarded something. "I just sent you Dr. Webb's contact information and the office address. Confirm the appointment at 9 a.m. Have the car ready at 1:30. And Sophia, this stays between us. If anyone asks where Mr. Harrington is during that time, he's in a private meeting, that's all." Sophia nodded slowly. "Is everything okay? With your mother?" Elizabeth's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing genuine worry. "I hope so. Thank you for asking." After Elizabeth left, Sophia sat processing this new information. Julian Harrington, the man who seemed to have everything, who controlled empires with a phone call, saw a therapist. It humanized him in a way that felt almost jarring. She made a note to confirm the appointment and returned to the morning briefing. 9:23 a.m. Sophia was on her third coffee, her own, not Harrington's perfectly timed brew, when her phone rang. Internal extension. "Ms. Chen, please come to my office." Harrington's voice was neutral, but something about the tone made her nervous. She grabbed her tablet and walked through the glass door. Harrington sat at his desk, his expression unreadable as always, but there was a woman sitting in one of the chairs across from him. She was perhaps 40, with platinum blonde hair styled in an elaborate updo, wearing a white suit that probably cost more than Sophia's monthly salary. Her makeup was flawless, her jewelry understated, but clearly expensive. "Sophia, this is Vanessa Hartley," Harrington said. "She's the CFO of Hartley Industries, one of our subsidiary companies." Vanessa stood and extended a perfectly manicured hand, her smile bright but not reaching her eyes. "So you're the famous Sophia Chen. Julian has told me absolutely nothing about you, which means you must be important." Sophia shook her hand, feeling immediately analyzed and assessed. "Nice to meet you." "Vanessa needs access to the Q4 financial projections for the Boston property," Harrington said. "They're in the secure files under Boston, confidential. Print them and bring them here." "Of course." Sophia returned to her desk and logged into the system. She found the folder easily enough, but when she tried to open it, a security prompt appeared. "Access restricted. Level 3. Clearance required." She tried again. Same message. Sophia walked back to Harrington's office. "I'm sorry, but I don't have clearance to access that folder." Vanessa let out a small laugh. "You hired an assistant without level 3 clearance? That's not like you, Julian." Harrington's expression darkened. "Elizabeth handles the secure files." "I didn't realize." He stopped himself, clearly annoyed. "Fine, I'll access it myself." He pulled up the files on his computer, but Vanessa stood and moved behind his desk, leaning over his shoulder to look at the screen. "Oh, just email them to me. I'll review them at the office." "These don't leave this building," Harrington said flatly. "Julian, don't be ridiculous. I need to share them with my team." "Then your team comes here." The tension in the room shifted, becoming almost palpable. Vanessa straightened, her smile tightening. "You don't trust me?" "I don't trust anyone with confidential projections before they're finalized. You know that." Vanessa's eyes flickered to Sophia, and for just a moment something cold passed through her expression. "I see. Well, I suppose I'll schedule a meeting with my team for later this week." She picked up her designer handbag. It was lovely meeting you, Sophia. I'm sure we'll be seeing each other again. After she left, the office felt heavier. Harrington sat silently, staring at his computer screen, his jaw tight. Did I do something wrong? Sophia asked quietly. No, Vanessa did. He looked up at her. She's been with the company for 6 years. She knows the protocol for confidential documents, but she thought she could use you, someone new, someone who doesn't know all the rules yet, to bypass it. Why would she do that? Harrington leaned back in his chair. Because information is currency, Miss Chen, and some people are always looking for an advantage. He paused. Be careful around Vanessa. She's brilliant at her job, but she's also ambitious. Dangerously so. Sophia nodded, filing this away. Another lesson in the complicated world she'd entered. 1:34 p.m. The car was ready, and Sophia had cleared Harrington's schedule as instructed. He emerged from his office at exactly 1:30 carrying nothing. No briefcase, no phone, just his wallet and keys. I'll be back by 5, he said. Hold all calls. Of course. And Mr. Harrington? Sophia hesitated. I hope the appointment goes well. He paused, studying her face. Elizabeth told you. She had to. She's in Boston with her mother. Harrington nodded slowly. Is that all she told you? Just that you had a personal appointment, that's all I need to know. Something shifted in his expression. A subtle softening. Thank you for being discreet. After he left, Sophia tried to focus on work, but her mind kept drifting. What did someone like Julian Harrington talk about in therapy? What kind of pressure did he carry that even his wealth couldn't solve? At 3:47, her phone rang. Unknown number. Julian Harrington's office, Sophia Chen speaking. Is he there? The voice was male, sharp, aggressive, different from David's call weeks ago. Mr. Harrington is in a meeting. Can I take a message? Tell him Marcus Chen called. Tell him I know what he did, and if he doesn't return my call by end of business today, I'm going to the press. The line went dead before Sophia could respond. Her hands trembled as she lowered the phone. Marcus Chen, the same last name as hers. A coincidence? She quickly searched the name on her computer. Nothing came up in Harrington's contact database. She tried a broader internet search. Marcus Chen, Julian Harrington. The results were sparse, but one caught her eye. An article from 8 months ago in a small financial blog. Former Harrington Enterprises executive claims wrongful termination. Sophia clicked through, her heart racing. Marcus Chen, former vice president of acquisitions at Harrington Enterprises, filed a lawsuit claiming he was terminated without cause after raising concerns about potentially illegal accounting practices within the company. Harrington Enterprises denied all allegations, stating Chen was fired for performance issues. The lawsuit was settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. Sophia stared at the screen, processing. Someone with her same last name had sued Harrington's company, had been paid off to go away, and now he was calling, threatening to go to the press. This couldn't be a coincidence. At 4:52, Harrington returned. He looked tired, genuinely tired in a way Sophia had never seen before. His usually perfect posture was slightly slouched, and his eyes had a distant quality. Any calls? He asked as he passed her desk. Sophia stood, her mouth dry. Yes, someone named Marcus Chen. He said. She paused, choosing her words carefully. He said he knows what you did, and if you don't call him back by end of business, he's going to the press. Harrington stopped walking. His entire body went rigid. What else did he say? His voice was dangerously quiet. Nothing. He hung up right after. Harrington turned to face her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw something like fear in his eyes. Did he say anything about you? Did he mention your name? No, just that he wanted you to call him back. Sophia hesitated. Mr. Harrington, is he related to me? Marcus Chen, that's my last name too. I don't know. But the way he said it made Sophia certain he was lying. Harrington walked into his office and closed the door. Through the glass wall, Sophia watched him pull out his personal phone, not the business one, and make a call. She couldn't hear the words, but she could see the tension in his shoulders, the sharp gestures he made while speaking. The call lasted 7 minutes. When he emerged, his expression had returned to its usual controlled neutrality. But Sophia could sense the storm beneath. Ms. Chen, I need you to do something for me, he said. And I need you to trust me when I say it's important. What is it? I need you to tell me everything about your family. Your parents, your grandparents, any relatives you know about. Especially anyone named Marcus. Sophia's stomach twisted. Why? Because I think Marcus Chen didn't call me by accident. I think he called because he knows you work for me. And if I'm right, Harrington ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she'd never seen from him. If I'm right, then your connection to me might have put you in danger. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and ominous. I don't understand, Sophia whispered. Neither do I. Not yet. Harrington's gray eyes held hers. But I'm going to find out. And until I do, I need you to be extremely careful. Don't talk to anyone you don't know. Don't go anywhere alone after dark. And if Marcus Chen contacts you directly, you tell me immediately. You're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. He paused. I'm sorry, Sophia. I should have been more careful. I should have anticipated this. Anticipated what? What did you do? Harrington looked at her for a long moment, seeming to weigh how much to reveal. 8 months ago, I fired a man named Marcus Chen because he was embezzling money from my company. He tried to frame it as whistleblowing, but the truth was, he'd stolen almost $3 million. I had proof and I was going to press charges. But he threatened to drag the company through a public trial, to make allegations he knew were false, but that would damage our reputation. So I settled. I paid him to go away and sign an NDA. But he's back, Sophia said. He's back. And somehow, he knows about you. Sophia felt the floor shift beneath her feet. The job she'd thought was her salvation was turning into something darker, more complicated than she could have imagined. Sophia's connection to Harrington has attracted the attention of a dangerous enemy. But is Marcus Chen really who Harrington claims? Or is there more to this story? And why does Sophia share his last name? Wednesday, 8:14 a.m. Sophia hadn't slept. She'd spent the entire night in her apartment, doors locked and deadbolted, searching every corner of the internet for information about Marcus Chen. The results were frustratingly sparse. A few mentions in business publications about his termination from Harrington Enterprises, the lawsuit settlement, and then nothing. It was as if he'd disappeared completely after taking Harrington's money. But the question that kept her awake wasn't about Marcus Chen's past. It was about whether they were actually related. Sophia had grown up knowing very little about her extended family. Her mother had died when she was 6, a car accident that Sophia barely remembered. Her father had remarried and moved to Oregon when she was 12, essentially cutting ties. She'd been raised by her grandmother, a quiet woman who'd emigrated from Taiwan in the 1970s and who rarely spoke about family back in Asia. When her grandmother died 3 years ago, Sophia had been left with more questions than answers about her roots. Chen was a common last name. There were probably thousands of Marcus Chens in the United States alone. The connection could be pure coincidence, but Sophia's instincts told her it wasn't. She arrived at the office at 7, earlier than usual, and found Harrington already there. He looked like he hadn't slept either. His tie was loosened, his jacket hung over his chair, and he was staring at his computer screen with an intensity that suggested he'd been there for hours. Mr. Harrington? Sophia knocked on the open door. He looked up, and she saw the exhaustion in his face. Come in. Close the door. Sophia did as instructed and sat across from him. I've been investigating, Harrington said without preamble. Marcus Chen isn't your relative, at least not directly, but there is a connection. Sophia's heart hammered. What kind of connection? Harrington turned his monitor toward her. On the screen was a genealogy website showing a family tree. Marcus Chen is 53 years old. He was born in San Francisco to parents who immigrated from Taiwan in 1968. His father's name was David Chen, not to be confused with my brother David. His mother was Linda Wu. He scrolled down. Your grandmother's maiden name was Wu. Linda Wu Chen. She had a sister named Margaret Wu. Your grandmother. Sophia felt the air leave her lungs. Marcus Chen is my grandmother's nephew? First cousin once removed, technically. His mother and your grandmother were sisters. Harrington leaned back, watching her reaction carefully. Which means when I hired you, I unknowingly hired the relative of a man who has every reason to want revenge against me. I didn't know, Sophia said quickly. I swear I had no idea. I know you didn't. Harrington's voice was firm. I had you thoroughly vetted, remember? If you'd known about the connection, it would have come up. This is coincidence, or at least it was supposed to look like coincidence. What do you mean? Harrington stood and walked to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. Marcus Chen is smart, cunning. When I caught him embezzling, he didn't just roll over. He fought back, hired expensive lawyers, dragged the investigation out for months. When he finally realized I had him cornered, he negotiated a settlement that kept him out of prison but cost me $3 million and a non-disclosure agreement. He turned to face her. Now, 8 months later, you show up. Same last name, same background. Struggling, desperate for work, in exactly the right place at exactly the right time when I just happened to be testing for honest employees. And within 2 weeks of you starting, Marcus calls my office threatening exposure. Sophia's stomach dropped. You think he planned this? That he somehow arranged for me to find that wallet? I don't know what to think yet, but the timing is suspicious. I didn't even know about the job at Billionaire until the day I was hired, Sophia protested. The hostess quit that morning, and I saw a help wanted sign in the window. I walked in, they interviewed me for 10 minutes, and I started that night. There's no way Marcus could have orchestrated that. Unless he had someone inside the restaurant. Unless he knew I'd be there that night because I always reserve the same table on the second Tuesday of every month. Unless he paid the previous hostess to quit at exactly the right time. Harrington's voice was cold, analytical. I've spent the last 8 hours running scenarios, Sophia, and I can't rule out that this was all carefully planned. Sophia stood, anger rising. So what, you think I'm some kind of spy? That I returned your wallet and took this job as part of some elaborate scheme to what? Get close to you? Steal information? I think you might be an unwitting pawn. The words hit her like a slap. I'm not anyone's pawn. Then prove it. Harrington pulled out his phone. Marcus called again this morning. 3 times. He wants a meeting. Tonight at a coffee shop in Brooklyn. He said if I don't show up, he goes public with allegations about financial fraud within my company. Are the allegations true? Harrington's jaw tightened. No, but truth doesn't matter in the court of public opinion. If Marcus makes enough noise, if he gets the media interested, it triggers investigations, audits, stockholder panic. Even if I'm ultimately cleared, the damage would be catastrophic. So you have to meet with him. We have to meet with him. Sophia's eyes widened. What? He specifically asked that you be there. He said, Harrington pulled up a text message and read from it. He said, bring Sophia. She deserves to know the truth about who she's working for. Sophia felt cold despite the heated office. He knows I'm here. He knows I work for you. He's been watching, waiting for the right moment to make his move. Harrington pocketed his phone, which is why we're going to meet him tonight and we're going to find out exactly what he wants. This is insane. Welcome to my world, Ms. Chen. 7:47 p.m., Brooklyn. The coffee shop was in Park Slope, a neighborhood Sophia knew vaguely from college. It was the kind of place that catered to writers and artists. Exposed brick walls, mismatched furniture, indie music playing low in the background. The evening crowd was thin, just a few people hunched over laptops or reading books. Sophia sat across from Harrington at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she hadn't touched. Harrington drank black coffee, his eyes scanning the entrance constantly. At exactly 8 p.m., Marcus Chen walked in. He was shorter than Sophia had imagined, maybe 5'7", with graying hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a brown jacket over a flannel shirt, looking more like a college professor than a corporate embezzler. But his eyes were sharp, calculating, and when they landed on Sophia, she saw something that made her skin crawl. Recognition and satisfaction. Julian, Marcus said, sitting down without being invited. Still pretending to be the hero of your own story, I see. What do you want, Marcus? Harrington's voice was flat, emotionless. Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He turned to Sophia. And you must be Sophia Chen, my cousin Margaret's granddaughter. I'd say it's nice to finally meet you, but I've been watching you for weeks now. Sophia's blood ran cold. You've been watching me? Someone had to make sure you were real. That you weren't just another one of Julian's carefully crafted illusions. Marcus leaned back, looking pleased with himself. Tell me, Sophia, did he tell you about the test? About how he left that wallet deliberately to see if you were honest? He told me, Sophia said quietly. But did he tell you why he needed someone honest? Why he was so desperate to find someone he could trust? Marcus's smile widened. It's because everyone else who's gotten close to him has discovered what he really is. A fraud, a manipulator, a man who destroys lives and calls it business. That's enough, Harrington said coldly. No, I don't think it is. Marcus pulled out a manila folder from his jacket and placed it on the table. Sophia, your boss paid me $3 million to keep quiet about what I discovered while working for him. Illegal accounting practices, bribery, using shell companies to hide assets and avoid taxes. I had documentation, I had emails, I had recordings. All fabricated, Harrington said. You were caught embezzling and tried to frame me to save yourself. Is that what you told yourself? Is that how you sleep at night? Marcus pushed the folder toward Sophia. Look for yourself. It's all in there. Copies of the evidence I gave to my lawyers during the settlement negotiations. Sophia stared at the folder like it was a snake. Why are you showing me this? Because you deserve to know who you're working for. Because you're family, Sophia, whether you knew it or not. And because Marcus's expression shifted, becoming almost sad. Because Julian Harrington destroys everyone who gets close to him. Your grandmother knew that. She tried to warn my mother about men like him, but my mother didn't listen, and look where it got our family. My grandmother never mentioned you, Sophia said. Never mentioned your mother. If we're family, why didn't she tell me? Because there was a falling out, years ago before you were born. Your grandmother and my mother stopped speaking after— Marcus hesitated, glancing at Harrington. After my mother made a mistake. After she trusted the wrong person and lost everything. Harrington's face had gone pale. Don't. Why not? She deserves to know. Marcus turned back to Sophia. 30 years ago, my mother invested her life savings in a real estate development project. A young, ambitious developer convinced her it was a sure thing, that she'd triple her investment within 2 years. She believed him. She gave him everything. And when the project collapsed, when he walked away with millions while investors like my mother were left with nothing, your grandmother blamed her for being foolish. They never spoke again. Sophia looked at Harrington, her heart sinking. No, it was my father, Harrington said quietly. Marcus's mother invested with my father, Robert Harrington, and when his company went bankrupt, she lost everything. But I had nothing to do with that. I was 8 years old. But you benefited from it, Marcus said bitterly. You inherited your father's empire, built on the backs of people like my mother. And when I tried to hold you accountable, you paid me off and made me sign away my right to speak the truth. Harrington's hands were clenched into fists on the table. Your mother knew the risks. Every investor does. My father didn't force her to invest. No, he just lied to her. Just like you lie to everyone. Marcus stood. I'm going public in 48 hours, Julian. I'm breaking the NDA. I don't care about the legal consequences anymore. The world needs to know what kind of man you are. Why tell me this? Harrington asked. Why not just go to the press? Because I wanted Sophia to hear it first. I wanted her to have a choice to walk away from you before you destroy her too. Marcus looked at Sophia one more time. You seem like a good person. Don't let him ruin you the way he's ruined everyone else. He walked out of the coffee shop, leaving the folder on the table. Sophia and Harrington sat in silence. Around them, the coffee shop continued its mundane evening. The hiss of the espresso machine, the soft chatter of customers, the indie music playing. But at their table, everything had changed. Is it true? Sophia finally asked. About your father and his mother? Yes, but I had nothing to do with it. And the evidence Marcus has, is any of it real? Harrington reached for the folder, but Sophia grabbed it first. I need to see for myself, she said. She opened the folder and began reading. Financial documents, email chains, accounting records. It was dense, technical, overwhelming. But as she scanned the pages, a picture began to form. Shell companies in the Cayman Islands, payments to offshore accounts, discrepancies between reported profits and actual assets. This looks bad, Sophia said quietly. It looks bad because Marcus is smart. He mixed real documents with falsified ones. Half of what's in there is legitimate business practice. The other half is fabrication designed to look damning. Harrington's voice was steady, but she could hear the strain beneath. If he goes public with this, even the legitimate parts will be twisted to fit his narrative. My competitors will use it against me. Regulatory agencies will investigate. And even when I'm cleared, the damage will be permanent. So stop him. Sue him for breaking the NDA. That takes time, and it makes me look like I'm hiding something. Harrington met her eyes. There's only one way to stop this, Sophia. I need to discredit him before he goes public. I need to prove he's lying, that he's motivated by revenge, that none of his allegations are true. How? By finding evidence of his embezzlement. Real evidence beyond what I already have. Something so damning that no journalist will take his story seriously. Harrington paused. And I think you might be the key to finding it. Sophia's stomach twisted. What do you mean? Marcus trusts you. He thinks he's saving you from me. If you contact him, if you tell him you want to know more, that you're having doubts about working for me, he might let his guard down. He might give you access to information that proves he's the real criminal. You want me to spy on him. I want you to protect yourself, Because if Marcus goes public and destroys my company, you lose everything too. Your job, your income, your future. Harrington's gray eyes were intense. Help me stop him, Sophia. Not for me, for you. Sophia looked down at the folder, her mind racing. Marcus was family. Distant family she'd never known, but still blood. Could she really betray him to save a billionaire who'd manipulated her from the start? But then again, Marcus had been watching her, stalking her, using her as a pawn in his revenge scheme without ever telling her the truth about who he was. Neither of these men were innocent. Neither of them truly cared about her beyond what she could do for them. She was trapped between two liars, and the only way out was to choose a side. Sophia stands at a crossroads. Help Harrington destroy the last remnant of her family, or walk away from everything she's built and let the truth, whatever that truth is, come to light. Her decision will change not only her future, but reveal secrets that will shake everything she thought she knew about loyalty, family, and trust.